truth and dropping truth bombs. Then welcome to Tinfoil Tuesday.
Have you ever thought about somebody that you haven't thought about in weeks or months or even years, and all of a sudden you think about them out of the blue, and then bang, they call you right that minute? I think most of us have had that experience. I want to unpack some things today, beginning with the telepathy tapes, and then I'm going to take it to a direction that might surprise you. This is Tinfoil Tuesday, episode 1. 3 things right off the bat, and these are important. Number 1, I love question marks. Everything I talk about on these Tuesdays, and really even in life when I have these conversations with friends, ends in a question mark. I don't have the answers, and things that end in a period don't interest me that much. Folks will come to me and they'll say, Johnny, tell me about the Titanic. And I'm like, I don't know, like there's some questions about it. It might have gone down to create the Federal Reserve in America, maybe, and it might not even have been the Titanic. It might have been its sister ship, the Olympic. I don't know, question mark. Periods don't interest me that much. I'm not going to have answers for you, but I am going to have questions. Number 2, I'm a Christian, not a very good one, but that forms and shapes and is my worldview, and I remain that. The older I get, my Christianity is solidified and not eroding at all. I love Jesus, but I cuss too much. And number 3, I want to encourage you to do your own research. I'm going to give you some resources today to steer you in the right direction. Go do your own homework, do your own research. It's a lot of fun. Be listening to podcasts and chasing books and reading blogs and things that make you think. Again, find questions that don't exactly answer your original questions. I go to look for answers and I find even more questions, and I freaking love it. Today's episode is brought to you by TriStar Trading. They remain the softest teas in the game. Link is right down below. Big thank you to the folks at TriStarTrading.com. I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. I love Joe Rogan's show. I kind of go through, because the episodes are so long, I don't get through a lot of them. So I pick based on who the guest is, and I find it to be challenging and fun and interesting, and I end up reading books based on things they talk about. And he's been talking, Rogan has, over the last couple months about the telepathy tapes. I'm like, I can't go listen to 9 episodes. But I jumped into it, and here we go. They're called the telepathy tapes, and there's 9 episodes of season 1. It's by Kai Dickens. She is a documentary filmmaker, and pretty interesting. They're very well done. They are compelling, and the short version is this. Well, first I jumped over to Ian Carroll, and I tried to get by with this. It didn't work. I thought Ian Carroll, he did an episode on this about a month ago. I love Ian Carroll's YouTube channel. And I thought I would get him to give me a synopsis, a 90-minute synopsis. I made it about 12 minutes in. And he's like, listen, you don't get to be a part of this conversation unless you've listened to all 9 episodes of the season 1. So I jumped over and jumped right in. And the short version, I'm now going to try to do what Ian Carroll did, and is give you a short synopsis. Kai Dickens met a woman named Diane Hennessy Powell, Dr. Powell. She's no slouch when it comes to legitimacy. She has a MD from John Hopkins University, and also was on the faculty at Harvard University in their medical school. That's a big deal, pretty big deal. And she, Dr. Powell, has been researching for some time. She does a lot of stuff. She does some wild stuff. But she has also found a phenomenon and researched it and documented that there is a large group of nonverbal, often completely non-communicative orally. They do communicate via an iPad or a touch computer system or some sort of technology assisting device. And these kids can read their mom's minds. And that's the opening. It gets bigger and wilder after that, but the bottom line, they have documented this really, really well. I open with the idea, and we've all done it. You think of somebody from 7th grade, you haven't thought about in years, and bang, they call you right that minute. There is something that goes on. There's also these phenomena that happen with twins. A lot of y'all have heard that twins can communicate with each other, and there is a twin language that a lot of them have verbally with each other, but they can also communicate over distances. That has been really, really well documented. So it got me thinking, got me talking to a lot of friends, and I get to this point, I'm like, I'm going to give you my thoughts here in just a minute, but it is a wild, wild idea. And I'm not saying can they or can't they, these autistic children who are non-verbal yet communicative, Can they read their mom's minds? I'm telling you, these ladies have documented it for years, and it is a phenomenon that does, that's a period, exist, ... There's a period, then ellipses. But what the heck is going on? Question mark, question mark. Now, I got going on this the last several days, and I'm going to give you my opinion in a second, but it reminds me of the CIA remote viewing project. That's been declassified a few years ago. You can find that really, really easy. It's the idea of men, often men, sometimes women, sit in a room and they can remote view. They can go into buildings and describe things. It's been documented really, really well. The U.S. Army also had a project called Stargate, and that's also been declassified, and it's no longer around. They had a really, you may have heard about this one. In the late 70s, a Russian Tu-22 aircraft crashed in Africa. We didn't know where. We knew it was down. And the U.S. Air Force used the CIA remote viewing project, and an airman, it was a lady, but she's an airman, actually told them exactly where to go on the entire continent of Africa and got within 3 miles of the location. And it was confirmed by President Jimmy Carter. Here's the audio of Jimmy Carter talking about this. Check it out.
The only strange and inexplicable event that has been discussed publicly is that one time we had a small plane go down somewhere in Africa. We needed very much to find out where that plane had crashed, and we were not able to find it by surveillance from our satellites. So the director of the CIA, he was also director of all the intelligence agencies, heard about a woman in California that was a medium, and he contacted her, and she gave him the latitude and longitude of the plane's whereabouts. And the next time one of our space satellites went over that area, we located the plane where she said it was.
All right, if that interests you at all, I'm going to recommend the book by Ronson, The Men Who Stare at Goats. Super interesting, and it's about the CIA remote viewing and all the U.S. Army stuff. Not to be confused with the movie. The movie's not that great, The Men Who Stare at Goats. I found that to be lame, and it was a complete disappointment, and a great resource, episode 2314 on the Joe Rogan Experience, and how Putoff goes through that entire story of the remote viewing, but he was in the middle of that and one of the creators of that. It works, not real accurately, but it does work, and it's really interesting. I don't know. I have no idea. Now, all of that to be said is that we don't know what's going on up here. I believe this very clearly, that we have abilities that are, I'm going to use the word atrophied, completely atrophied, that maybe we all have this. You've heard it before, that we remember everything, but we just don't have access to those memories. Some people do. Let me walk you through a few savants. Here's one of my favorites, and I've been researching, or maybe chasing a little bit for years and years, because this stuff really interests me, the unknown. It all began when I was a young child. I was born a poor black child. It began in the early 80s from a TV show called That's Incredible, and they would have sometimes savants on there, and I found it fascinating, big time fascinating. Probably the grandfather, I would say, of all savants. He's a super savant. Is Kim Peek. He's no longer with us, but some of y'all have seen Kim Peek before, and people have documented his journey, and he did a lot of talks and would do presentations at universities. My favorite thing that he would do is he reads an entire novel or a book or a textbook in about an hour, and his left eye reads the left page, his right eye reads the right page, and he just turns the page, scans, and could put the book up on his shelf. He would put it upside down if he had finished reading it. He did that his entire life, and he could recall everything. Now, not all of it was word for word, but he would recall the information. He had essentially about 12,000 books memorized-ish, but super, super fascinating. They called him autistic for many, many years, but it now has been reevaluated that he has a syndrome called FG syndrome. Super, super interesting. He was the inspiration for a movie. Any guesses? Some of y'all know this. Rain Man. He is the original Rain Man, and that movie, or the screenplay, was written about Kim Peek's life, but He could do things up here that we cannot. Meet Leslie Lemke, and I remember him from That's Incredible. It's fantastic that this has come back around. Leslie Lemke, horrible stuff that he was dealing with physically, couldn't feed himself, blind. I mean, really, really bad. I won't go through all he was dealing with as a child. And one night, in the middle of the night, his mom wakes up, and the kid at 16, 19, somewhere in there, is playing Tchaikovsky. The kid does not know how to play piano, and plays piano and sings and is phenomenal and goes from being very much almost nonverbal, really, really bad physical stuff he was dealing with, and could play Tchaikovsky and became a concert pianist. It's wild. Meet Alonzo Clemens. He can't tie his own shoes, but he is a phenomenal and very successful sculptor. And he can do things with his mind and his fingers, but can't perform regular day-to-day tasks. Here's one of my favorites, Stephen Wiltshire. He's really cool, this guy. They can take him up in an airplane or a helicopter and scan over a city, and then he can come back and draw the city in detail. Here he is drawing the city of Tokyo. He did a 1-hour flight over Tokyo and spent a full week drawing the panorama to scale and in detail. He has got stuff in his noggin and abilities that you and I clearly don't have. Daniel Tammet, he has memorized pi. Is it the number pi, the quotient pi? I don't know. I know pumpkin pie. He's memorized pi up to over 22,000 spaces or places, and he was challenged because he's really good with languages. He was challenged to learn Icelandic. He learned it in a week and went on camera and did interviews in Icelandic a week after starting the language. Stuff is locked away. Finally, I want to bring this back to today. There are some theories out there that if you believe in them, it's Tinfoil Tuesday, the aliens communicate via mind. And there's been a lot of stories. One of my favorite is Jason Sands. He ran into a blue dude with big eyes and no ears in 1994 out in the desert of the American Southwest on a U.S. Air Force base. Guess where that was? And he came face to face with a young adolescent, one of the tall ones, one of the big 8-footers, but he was an adolescent, so he wasn't tall yet. And the guy locked onto him, the being locked onto Jason. He said it wasn't unpleasant, it wasn't uncomfortable, it was as natural as talking to you or me. And it went gibberish, 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 lock on, and they could communicate, and they talked. And they talked about his ship and that he needed some tritium for his ship. And then they unlocked and went on with life. And he said it was as natural as breathing, that easy. There's also some talk, and by the way, the alien communicating with mind has been around for a while. A lot of folks talk about that. And some believe that they use the Earth's magnetic field like the way that we use Wi-Fi. I don't know. Question mark. There's also a lot of talk coming out of Area 51 that the men that fly these ships, we have some what they call donations, alien ships, not from off planet, but technology and the flying saucers that they fly with minds. And when your mind can lock onto the ship, they fly. I don't know. I will say this. Clearly, the human mind is capable of a lot more than we realize. Clearly, there are folks that have abilities that you and I don't have. Just like on Rain Man, and there are people that can do that. You spill 1,000 toothpicks on the floor, a savant can look down and go, there's 2 missing. There's 998, and they can count that easy. There are people, and there was a professor at East Tennessee State University, just down the road from here, that could remember the weather from every day for his entire life without fail, and you could look it up and challenge him on any day, and he knew the weather for every single day that he had ever lived. You've seen these folks. Kim Peek, for many years, you can give him any sort of historical event, he'll tell you what day it happened, or you tell him the day, and he'll tell you what happened on that day. Super, super big memories. I believe this, maybe, question mark, that a lot was lost at the Tower of Babel. And when the languages were confounded and people were split up, I believe we have atrophied. Possibly when we move from the garden situation, but from the garden and sin enters the earth and things start to crumble, maybe it wasn't Babel. Maybe it was the garden and sin, and we've lost our abilities. What if Adam and Eve and their offspring before sin had all of these abilities unlocked and they had a much bigger? Now, there's going to be people type in the comment section, we only use 10% of our brains. Not true. That's disproved years and years ago, decades ago. We use 100% of our brain. Our brain is firing even when we're asleep. However, there remains to be skills, abilities, and maybe telepathy that remains unlocked.
Welcome to Tinfoil Tuesday. We hope you sing along.
You want answers? Diabetes.